Hello everyone, this is model number 18, the RMS Titanic build. Now, longtime viewers of my channel will know that there already is a Titanic build on there, but that one got a copyright and partially blocked because of music. So this time, as you've seen from recent weeks and months, I am re-recording with narration these videos. So you can see here how I realized I had to paint the windows by hand and then brush off the excess paint so the paint stayed only in the holes. And you see how there's the parts for the rudder. I already started working with the different colors based on the guide. So there's the white primer on all the parts. There's the hull. So the hull comes in two pieces, lower half red, top half black. There's the box for the Titanic itself. So I guess I did have a picture of the kit after all. And then of course I used the gloss black on the stand and those black parts there. Here's the wood deck tan and the light sand. They were used at respective places. You can see the field test there of the two, just to see which one looked better. And of course, I tried to create the White Star buff by spraying both the yellow and the wood deck tan simultaneously. That didn't quite work out. So first I sharpied the parts on the funnels, and then I started mixing up my own color. You'll see the recipe for that mix later on in the video. But what I did is I bought those little bottles from the hobby store, and I use a little white label on the cap to label what it is. Titanic funnel mix or other starships and such. You can see there, that's the recipe based on the White Star buff. But first I had to primer the funnels because I learned the hard way that nothing stuck to them unless I primered it first, not even hand paint. So you got the bottle out, use the recipe, and there you go. There's the first section. Field test it before you apply it to the ship. So there is the hull primered, at least that's the lower section, I think. And I wanted to make sure I got good coverage. You can see some individual plating on there, plus all the windows. And there's the middle section. So they had little pegs underneath. Used them with the clips, and that's how I did it. And there it is. You're either looking at the bow or the stern from that angle. Yes, I used the top cover of the Voyager box as my painting thing, but don't worry, it got protected. Quite a few pictures of that, but remember, it was gray primer over black plastic, so it wouldn't quite. You can see the anchors, so that is the bow after all. Good, now we know. There's the red hull. Now, of course, that's the plastic color that it came in. Almost a hull red, but I didn't want a plasticky look, so I wanted to paint it first to make sure that it looked proper. But first I get all the pictures. And the interesting thing is the rudder. The rudder is slightly bent. But when you put the ship right side up, you'll realize it's bending as if it's trying to go to the left around the iceberg. Here's the bottom hull painted. Now, it's interesting. This is late 2019, right? I'd already done a bit of videos for both Model 12, the 537 refit, and I believe I did it for the Mark III DeLorean too. It's quite kind of surprising that I didn't think of doing videos for this, but that's where the narration comes in. You can see the saucer of the model number 12. There's the two parts of the hull. And you see how I store the bottle paints. And then you started putting paints together to make the recipe for the White Star buff for the funnels, because they're not supposed to be as orange as they were on the box. You saw that in the earlier picture. So there's the field test, you see. And then, of course, you get the parts that make up the decking. wood deck tan, I believe. Now, I know that's kind of blurry, so you can't really see, but it's mostly deco art. And yes, you had a big bottle, a big container full of it, which you had to put into a smaller bottle once you funneled it down and everything. So there you go, both sides. And there's the recipe mix, which I just eyeballed it. And there's the primer on the decking. So you'll see that from all four sides again. I primered everything, but on the same sprue tree. So the decking is all together. I cut it apart that way, so wood deck tan. And did the same for the hull and everything else. So there's the hull red. There actually was a Tamiya color called hull red, which is a dull brownish red, which I use for the bottom of the ship. You see how that big bin served as a paint booth, for lack of a better term. That's the hand painting with my mixture that I did on the funnels. Here's a slightly better view. And then, of course, I went after the top of the ship. Now, if I did this again, I would invert that so the ship slopes downward slightly. And then I had to touch up the funnels with my mixture to make sure everything stayed in place properly. And then you start getting into the instructions and how I applied stuff. See? Look at that big box. That's how you let the paint dry without it breaking anything. I had to turn it that way. And then once the paint dried, I think we're in mid-November of 2019 by now, I started assembling everything. And of course, I took the pictures from both directions. And you can see here the initial assembly steps with the base and everything. There it is applied to the base, which made a good level stand while I assembled the rest of the ship. And now you see the tail fins. But those tail fins might also be mounting points for the propellers. And of course I had to do them separately in the same hull red as I did the bottom of the ship so that they would blend in. You can see how the color in the instructions is brighter than it is on the ship. And you can see there's the rudder in red, and it's slightly bent to the left, almost like they built it as if it was trying to avoid the iceberg. And then you get into, I don't know what those little parts are. I guess they weren't painted yet. They were just primered. Maybe, oh, I know. Those are windows. They go on top of the black. As you can see from the instructions. That's it. You start getting into the white decking, the white windows, the first class cabins and stuff. It's well above the waterline. I get it. And you have to build the ship up from that base, piece by piece, step by step. And I found out that you could use a toothpick to widen the holes, or even a little pin vise. That's what I eventually turned to. And of course, I had the habit of taking pictures of the ship from all four sides pretty well for each stage of assembly. So that's what you see in all these pictures here, and that's why part of the reason this video is 20 minutes long. But you can see the box in the background that it came in. I didn't want to have the funnels be that bright pumpkin orange. I wanted to make them something more realistic. Now remember, there weren't any color photos at the time, but there were color paintings, so that's what I used. And look how narrow the hull is. Excuse me. So it's from both sides, front and back, I think. And then you see it from the top. Yes. Now, the great thing about the instructions is they come in full color. So if you ever missed painting a part, you'll know pretty quickly. And of course, I built this on my dining room table. I turned it lengthwise towards the wall. And now you can see the beginning of the back decking being put in place. You can tell it's the back decking because it's wider. And I made sure to detail paint the benches. So brown benches with black partitions. I had to use a very fine brush for that. So you had to, you see all those peg holes? You had to build up the decking bit by bit as well. Inside those white window inserts. And yes, I know, the back doesn't join quite completely, but I did the best I could. This was my very first naval vessel. See, there's the first stairway. So I watched the Titanic movie, and I used it as best I could to help detail paint the ship. Yeah, so it's taking shape. Those are mast holes, I think. You can see how the ship is mostly hollow inside, but there are pegs on which to place these light deck tan components. And then you see all the little components that go onto the back of the ship. And at that time, 6 years ago, I used orange for the assembly stages. And I tried to take the best pictures I could, so I guess you could consider these narrated videos kind of like what Right On Replicas does, where it has pictures and narrates underneath them. But I'm doing this years after I built the model. Wait, those are gray things. That's not a glue smudge after all, is it? Those are little gray things. And so it's taking shape bit by bit, step by step, across the back of the hull first before I get to the front of the hull. And you can see the stairway built up, little gold things that they almost look like copper wire rolls or something. So quite a lot of pictures. See how wood deck tan is duller than the table, but it's the right color. Light sand would be too much into the orangish color scheme, so they had a color specifically called wood deck tan, so I used it and I was happy with the results. Because I used light sand for the seats on Kit, which became car. That was model number 11, if memory serves. See, now we're getting into the bow piece. You can tell because it's pointed at the very front. There's the bow piece. Painted with the wood deck tan. There's some detail colors already in place. There's the bow piece inserted. But you can see how there's still a gap. You still don't have everything assembled along the midline of the ship. You have the front bow piece, and you're seeing it from all four sides, and you saw the pictures earlier of the stern piece, yes. But you can see the white, you can see the brown or copper, you can see all the other steps of assembling little pieces and everything. See, now you're getting more things in place. That's good, that's good. But you're still leaving those holes for the masts or whatever else might be put in place. Now, that's weird. That angle makes it look like it's a bit crooked, and yet those bow pieces are down as far as they could go. There's a detail. There's a stairway. There's some white things. So now it's taking shape, bit by bit, step by step. Don't know if you have any benches in place of the bow. Ah, maybe they're coming now. And see, each step is labeled. Step 24, step 25, etc. Oh, those are for the anchors. That's what those are. Those black things there. Those are for the anchors. And yes, this ship actually did have molded anchors for the bow in the red part of the hull. Well, hopefully I have a close-up view of that. But no, step by step, a lot of this work, this assembly, was done according to the timestamp and the pictures on November 19th, 2019. And yes, it does float in the bathtub, even with the stand in place, keeps it level, and the water did not damage the stand. So the model boat actually floated. So here's the rear hull. See, there's another big stairwell. You can see the benches below it. You can see, I guess, they're lifeboat moving things. That's a rather blurry picture of the bow, but I believe a clearer picture is coming up now. There you go. See the gold on the top of those little round things? They look a lot like rope mooring. Maybe that's what they are. Now we're getting into the application of the center line. See the pegs in the bottom, ready to apply the center line, but first you have to apply the centerline decking, the outer edges. And see how it fits together with those pegs from left to right? So that's looking towards the bow, that's looking towards the stern. And this is where I realized that if the part didn't fit into the peg hole that was designed for it properly, you had to use the pin vise to widen out the peg hole so the part would stay flush and it would be level. But it's nice, really nice to see the ship taking shape. Now we've got about 5 minutes left in the video. So here we go. Wood deck tan for the midline of the hull. See? The surface. Painted in wood deck tan, just like it was from the on the sprue tree. And it went on pretty smoothly, so I was quite happy. But you see how it bows up at the back and the front? That's so strange. But there you go. There's the ship. And yes, I know the trim pieces don't join exactly at the bow, nor do they join exactly at the stern. But the person I made it for was happy. That was my mom, actually. And this was the first model I actually built for someone. It's a complete surprise. They had no idea I was doing it. And she had just got back from her trip to Ireland. And on one of her earlier trips, she had actually visited Belfast, which is the shipyard where the Titanic was built. And of course, now that the decking is in place across the entire ship, now you begin building up the windows and everything on top of it, leaving spaces for the masts and the funnels and everything. So now that's strange. From that angle, you can't even tell there's a ship underneath there. Now you can, but you're looking at it from the front. I think those are lifeboat arms. Wow, it's really neat how it builds up so much. And I mean, I don't know if I even painted that white plastic. I might have just left it unpainted. But plenty of spaces for the funnels. You can tell that there. Wow, look at that. See the windows? I hadn't painted all the windows yet. I wanted to have the ship's assembly complete. Detail painting on the stairwells as best I could. Zoomed in and took the best pictures I could. Now, I don't even know where that stairwell goes. It doesn't seem like there's maybe it's some kind of mast or something. There's the gray stuff. See, I don't know what all those pieces are, but I just took the most detailed pictures I could. I believe I painted the roofs of those gray things by hand. First funnel insertion. And of course, you had the recipe for the funnels, which I showed you in earlier pictures. Now, one of the funnels I had to paint according to the recipe. It wouldn't, it was an experiment. I wanted to see if the recipe was better than my eye. And personally, I like the other 3 funnels that were slightly more orange. So the front 2 and the back 1 is mine. The one in the middle, the third one from the back, second from the back in this picture, was from the recipe. And you can see the masts are in place, the ladders are in place, the height decal is there. There's the anchors. You can see the anchor. So that's the ship on the... If that's the dining room table, I must have put down paper towels. And there it is in front of my DVD collection, but don't worry, I'll have better pictures coming up in just a minute or two. There's the side that shows the ship's decal. So that's beautiful. And there it is up on a display shelf, so I started displaying them wherever I could. And then I had to do a bit of detail painting. Started with the windows, see? White windows, but then I eventually, I believe, made them a soft yellow. Now don't worry, that mess that you see, well, don't worry, I wiped it down. You see? And as the paint got off the brush, wore off, so you have some bright windows, you have some duller windows. Don't know if they had light brightness settings way back in the 19-teens, but that just became the effect. And a few modern windows with the white lighting instead of the light. I believe it was Inca gold. Could have been antique gold, though, of course. And then back on the display shelf with most of the windows completed. And then I put it back on the shelf itself. That was the living room table, actually. At the time, the coffee table. And there it is with the flags and the windows all lit up. I figured using a toothpick was the best thing, and then you just wipe the hole down and the paint stayed in the indent. And there it is at Mom and Dad's house after I gave it to Mom. So that's a zoomed out picture. This is a zoomed in picture, which you probably recognize from the first version of this video. There it is. I had to brighten it up. See how orange it makes the funnels? This one is in the more natural color. The funnels are more of a brownish orange. So that is the model number 18, the RMS Titanic. I believe it was 600 scale, and we'll see you here next time. Bye-bye.